I'm Chris Brogan. I can't believe I lucked out to have Eric Ries on the show. Really quickly, author of The Lean Startup, which I was told, stop what I'm doing and read. I said to you moments ago that this book could have been subtitled "Chris Brogan is a Stupid Idiot, and Here's Why." Do you feel like you run like a support group for startup founders now?
It's something like that, yeah. I've never met so many founders in my life as I have, in the last few months with the book. And so many people, they want to come tell me about the mistakes they've made, the failures they had. It's like we're making failure okay. So it's actually cathartic for people to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I copped a little bit. It's funny when you blog, you tend, and you've blogged for a while. I mean, it's going to be my next question, but I'll get back to it. I've copped a little bit on it today, saying that the opposite of failure, the opposite of success isn't failure. The opposite of success is entropy. And part of what I was getting at with that is stuff I learned from you, because failure, of course, what I liked is you said there's no real excuses. You can't use failure as an excuse. You have to grow into learning how to use failure better. Do you want to say that a lot better than I just did?
Well, it's actually one of the deep lessons of the scientific method, that if you can't fail, you can't learn. But as startup, because we face so much uncertainty as entrepreneurs, learning is our most precious thing. So if we want to set up an organization that's built to learn, it has to be built to fail. But those failures don't have to be catastrophic failures. I mean, the whole company failed. It just means we failed in a specific idea, a specific strategy. It gives us the opportunity to say, hey, that's not working. Here's a different way. We call it a pivot, a different way to try to realize that vision.
You said something about the runway of a startup is how many pivots they have left in it. And, again, I feel like I failed you at explaining that so well. But what you're saying is, and you had some really great examples of this, the voting one is the one I'm trying to say. Can you summarize that just a tiny bit?
Yeah, sure. This is a great company here in San Francisco called Votizen, and they are trying to disrupt the political process in this country. They want citizens to get more engaged using tools like social media. But the problem is that the people that you want to influence in politics are not exactly, as social media mavens. In fact, a lot of them can barely operate a computer. So how do you translate the digital world, the fast-moving, real-time world of Twitter, Facebook, social media, into the very slow-moving, some might even say corrupt world of politics? And so Votizen today is a really cool tool where you can go online, basically tweet your support of a specific issue. It verifies that you really are a registered voter, figures out who your elected officials are, and then it causes them to receive like a giant stack of petitions, actual pieces of paper that show here are people in your district registered to vote. Here's what they think about the issue. So it acts as this translation layer from the online to the offline. But making that actually work turned out to be really, really difficult.
In reading all the variants, before you got there, it's interesting where it all ended compared to where it started. And I mean, that was just the best example of that. The other thing I just realized as you were saying this is, who else he could have hit up was forestry people, because,
Right.
Clearly turning tweets into paper is a brilliant model for eating trees.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So Eric, one of the things I noticed that you had a fairly healthy blogging life going on. Why did you have to go and ruin it and write a book? I mean, books are stupid and they're painful, and you thought you knew what you were getting into because you've been blogging for years. What a dumb idea. Who told you that was okay?
You should see the looks on people's faces here in San Francisco when I tell them I decided to write a book. We call it putting ink on the dead trees here. It's like, why, what is the point? But what I realized in looking at the overall situation that we face as an economy, big part of my passion is getting people to stop wasting other people's time, building products that nobody wants, projects that are doomed to fail. The litany. I mean, you talk to anyone who works in any modern company, and in fact, most startups are doomed from the start. So there's a lot of wasted time. And I was thinking, whose fault is it? Right? Who's causing the problem that we're trying to address? It's really not the entrepreneurs, the scrappy startups. I mean, yes, they make some mistakes, but they're working within an ecosystem that rewards them for all the wrong things, what we call vanity metrics, success theater, all these problems. Who's causing those problems? Well, it's our modern managers, CEOs, private equity investors, public market investors, policymakers. They're the ones that we need to reach. And guess what? Those people don't read entrepreneurship blogs. In fact, a lot of those people don't even think of themselves as entrepreneurs, even though the basic function that they do is trying to create something new under conditions of extreme uncertainty, which, I mean, that's an entrepreneur to me. So my recognition was, you want to reach those people. You want to help them see this new way of working, see the change in our economy that's happening. It's got to be a book.
You see, I dragged you into that question just to really validate myself ultimately, because, I also publish books, and to me, my buyer is at Hudson's News Seller. It's not the guy who comes to my blog. I've got that guy. And your blog, startuplessonslearned.com. I mean, you've been around for a while doing some really good stuff on that. But that's your inside crowd. That's the crew who kind of knows you. That's the people that you're likely going to run into at a Jamba Juice down the street, not, the person you need to hook. You need the person who's like thumbing that, book in their hand and going, what do you know, at Hudson's. And I guess that's why you went that route.
Yeah, if you think about the way that technology and ideas diffuse, there's something really similar about them. There's the so-called technology lifecycle adoption curve, right, where you reach early adopters before you reach the mainstream customers. And if you really take that idea seriously, it says you have to use your early adopters in order to gain the validation and traction that you will need ultimately to cross the chasm, as I say, into the mainstream. That's just as true for a book as it is for a tech product or a website or anything else. Those evangelists, those people who are on the cutting edge, they're really important to building a movement around a set of ideas, but they are not the target audience. They're not the only people that matter. It's the people who control most of the resources, who make most of the decisions in our society, the so-called mainstream customers. They're ultimately the ones we have to influence.
I love it. The book is The Lean Startup. You are Eric Ries. We could go to startuplessonslearned.com to learn more about you. And thank you so much for being available for this quick interview.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.